Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Office Bloke Daz.
I'm Office Bloke Mike.
Here we are, Mike's subbing in for Aiden today.
Yeah. Number 12 off the bench again.
One of them.
Yeah, that's like the old days of when I played football. Coming in off the bench.
Coming in to rescue it. Yeah.
Oh, not about that.
Shore it up at the back.
Just wasn't good enough to get in the A team, but, you know.
I don't believe that. I played football with you. It's a little bit of a spin back here, Mike. The NFL was completely different in the 90s. Yeah,
it's amazing. I mean, most team sports do evolve, don't they? And over the last 10, 20 years or so, I think they've done a lot more with sports science, nutrition and professionalism. But I think it's just gone. It's gone pretty aesthetic, really.
I think athletes nowadays in all major sports are elite level, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely.
They're super solid.
I think
right up at the top. Yeah,
and I think because of the money in the sport, I think they've got to be. I think that's what owners, fans, sponsors. That's what we expect.
Yeah, exactly.
Really
exactly.
do.
Let's see what it was. Let's see how different it was then. The NFL was completely different in the 90s. Let's see.
Yeah.
You know, he said, well, it'd be great to get 2,000, wouldn't it? He said, yeah. There it is. The linemen, they're the ones who wanted the 2,000. Barry didn't talk about it. Papa watching on the sidelines. William. Urban Moore stole the ball. Second and 8. He gets the call. Here he goes.
Absolutely unbelievable.
All the way to the 3-yard line.
In 1994, after receiving criticism for having, quote, so many dull games, the NFL made a big decision.
I think that's the other thing as well, where you have to change stuff to keep it fresh. Otherwise, people get fed up with it.
Yeah, you know, same all the time.
When we were younger in the 80s, snooker was huge.
Yeah,
on TV,
it was massive.
We could probably name every single snooker player that existed in the 80s.
Absolutely, primetime TV. Like
now,
say.
I probably couldn't even name more than 3.
I don't think I could. I mean, sort of 1 or 2 spring to mind, but you know, not many at all. But like I say, in the 80s, all of them.
Yeah,
because bringing records out and all sorts of it.
Correct.
Prime time,
Correct.
Absolutely prime time TV.
Yeah, but when you look at it, I mean, the only time in the 80s, probably the only real time you could go and watch a match, you'd have to go.
Yeah,
and or wait for like a highlight show that came at the end of the week.
Yeah, that's
sort
right.
of thing. But you couldn't there was no. I mean, nowadays pretty much all sports televised.
Yeah,
but back in the day it was televised but not live.
Yeah, not as it is now.
So that's changed. You got to evolve it, sort of thing. I mean, so it's come soon in the UK where we don't get it. And people who don't know this, in the UK they don't screen all the games.
No.
So there's a blackout at 3:00 on a Saturday. Yeah. So you can't show any football at 3:00 on a Saturday unless it suits the broadcaster.
Yeah, which during COVID it did. So they did show them all, but you know, it's at staggered times, in fact, wasn't it? But which worked pretty well, actually.
It did.
It's pretty popular.
But now it's gone back to the 3:00 blackout. So all the games that get played 3:00 on a Saturday, you can't
see them.
watch.
No, anywhere else you can.
Yeah,
in Europe,
watch more around the world. Yeah,
watch them anywhere.
Just not in England. Yeah, which is a bit bizarre.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, there you go. That's something that's different. The modernisation of games.
Yeah. Just I know a quick one with snooker. I mean, I know it's not the one we're talking about here, but that is a difficult one to modernise and get something different. It's the same rules, everything's the same in it, and it's difficult to know
just got to speed it up
to it. I guess so.
That's what it comes down to. It's just with games like that, just got to put a bit of speed on it. It's like they did with the cricket, speed it up a little bit. You know, sort of like
cricket has come with different formats, with the
2020,
the 100. You know, so they've been able to mix up a bit like that.
But games like this, like NFL. I mean, how do you enhance it?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose there's certain tweaks to the rules because in football, soccer, there's certain tweaks to the. I mean, most of the rules are the same, aren't they?
Yeah.
But it's got better because it's got faster and it's become more athletic.
Yeah.
And different styles of play, different tactics has played a big role. So I'm wondering whether NFL, whether there's different tactics that have come into play. A different system, a different way of playing that's sort of like enhanced the football over the years. Because I know it has done in soccer without a doubt.
Yeah.
So
let's see.
Yeah.
This included multiple rule changes in favor of the offense, catapulting the league into the modern NFL. The 90s saw the Bills go to 4 straight Super Bowls and not win a single one. The San Francisco 49ers, who made the transition to Steve Young at quarterback, found a way to win another Super Bowl. This gave them 5 titles since 1981. But that took little storm away from the Dallas Cowboys. Led by their triplets, they won 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. Whether your team was winning Super Bowls or getting relocated, it was a time to remember. It was crazy posters, starter jackets, and Tecmo Bowl. It was the 90s.
Throw it as far as you can. This guy is amazing. Randy Moss is amazing. Randall Cunningham is amazing.
The presentation of NFL games has come a long way. In the 90s, they would show the down and distance in the bottom corner before the snap. But the scoreboard didn't even appear while games were going. You simply just had to watch and know the score and roughly how much time remained on the clock. The only time that you saw the score was when it was going to and coming back from commercial break. By the late 90s, TV stations like Fox had started showing an overlay with a score, which quarter it was, and how much time was left on the clock.
Close.
If we compare that to now, networks like CBS and Fox feature additions to the score overlay that include the team's logo, their record for the season, the play clock, and constantly flipping through scores and stats of other games at the bottom of the screen. The 90s form of watching football was much more of a pure fan experience. It was very straightforward.
And then he blocked again. There's nothing wrong with that. And then Dion, now they just start duking. Watch the left.
I don't think anyone's going to bother throwing him up then.
This was a time where pads were huge and uniforms were loose. The grabbing and pulling a player down by his jersey was a much better strategy back then. Here's a good visual just to show how much uniforms have changed. Overall, it fits much better. Knee and thigh pads are now paper thin. Without the clunkiness of the excess padding, players now have a much better range of motion and mobility in general. Today's uniform features more style than ever before. Over the span of time, we saw accessories go from protective layers to a fashionable look. Deion Sanders is one of the OGs when it comes to football style. He rocked this long sleeve armband combo in the 90s. He was cool before being cool was a thing in the league. Because the league still had stadiums that used AstroTurf, players had to wear these special turf shoes called Nike Airs. It was kind of like regular turf, just way worse. It looked like this, and was placed on top of cement. The length of it was so short that standard cleats had no chance of being effective. Playing on this material made you feel extremely fast and elusive, but if you fell down or got tackled on it, you paid a major price. Herman Edwards once said, "I don't know anybody who liked playing on artificial turf that we had back then. It was like playing football on concrete." It's a weird concept to imagine, and it didn't last too much longer in the NFL. Even though most players are still not a fan of the turf they have now, it's still better than what they had back then. So, I didn't exactly grow up in the 90s. For this section, I'm going to turn it over to my man, 5 Point Vids.
Now that I look back at it, football culture in the 90s was very different than it is today. You have to remember there were a few things missing back then. Easily available internet and an entire industry dedicated to covering football like it is now. The two go hand in hand. While things like dial-up internet existed for the most part, you got your sports info from either the newspaper or Sports Center. So if you weren't glued to the TV on Sunday trying to figure out if your team won, you didn't know. Secondly, without internet, there was no fantasy football other than a few hardcore guys that mailed in their stats.
Yeah, it's difficult to avoid results, don't it? If you just watch the highlights later on, it's almost impossible, isn't it, to avoid it?
I'm not a massive fan of watching highlights. But
but
I'll watch them, but I'll know the scores.
Sometimes you have to because you can't see the 3 o'clock kickoffs.
Correct.
Which is why people watch it, maybe, isn't it? So,
but it's, for me, it's like, but when you talk about that, you think now when we've watched these videos where it's like, it shows you around the campuses of the, the locker rooms and all that kind of stuff of college football.
Yeah, amazing.
One of the first things he always says is, we've got to hit a place here for the phone. We've got a charger.
Yeah,
and you're like,
absolutely top priority.
That's the priority now. Yeah,
but it's a good point you made before about the TV and the coverage, because the coverage of Sky, to be fair, has been
changed it,
in the Premier League. It's been absolutely incredible.
Correct, yeah.
And I guess it'd be the same for the NFL. Different angles, the amount of cameras they have now. Yeah. That has been a big part of the difference, I think, over the last 20, 30 years, without a doubt.
100%,
huge part of it.
Yeah, I agree.
So the fan experience was a little bit more pure. Unless you had a bookie. Not to say that football wasn't hella fun back in the 90s. For me, I love seeing the huge shoulder pads, the violent hits, but as a fan that lived out of state from the squad I loved, keeping up with the G-men was often difficult. Of course, that lack of connectivity allowed the greatest linebacker of all time to buy crack without getting it plastered on social media. LT, still love you, dog.
Dear me.
Tell me, what is your secret? How do you find yourself in the right position all the time?
That's a good question. What happens is the center has the ball first, and quarterback will say hike. That's when the center puts the ball into the hands of the quarterback. So what I'll do is I'll start tackling the quarterback unless he get the ball to somebody else, in which case I'll try to tackle that person.
Gentlemen, what brings me to my next point. Don't smoke crack.
Brilliant. From Lawrence saying.
Yeah, brilliant that.
Long pass.
Sports games in the 90s saw a lot of change. Tecmo's Super Bowl, which came out in 1991, is considered an all-time classic. It's beloved by the generation of kids who grew up playing it. And just 7 years later, football games look dramatically different than what we saw back then.
It's not a real thing now.
This was truly the golden era of being into football games. The characters in the game went from pixels to actually starting to look like football players. Due to the competition of multiple companies pushing to create the best game on the market, 90s gamers had a variety of great titles to choose from. Nowadays, we're sort of in a weird period for NFL football games. Madden has been the single NFL game on the market since buying the exclusive rights to use NFL teams and players. With every year that passes, it seems the player base is growing more and more skeptical of the game and the direction that EA is taking the franchise. As someone who can't even get through a single game of Madden anymore, I'm really hoping that this new college football game that's set to come out hits it out of the park. Us football fans need it. Since the rule changes in 1994, the NFL has had an emphasis on player safety and has continued to help the offensive side of the ball ever since. We can expect them to continue going down this path. The days of the old school, big collision type of football that we all grew up on is fading. Plus, I don't know if any of the players will ever be as tough as they used to be. I mean, how many quarterbacks in their late 30s would do this?
11th play of this drive that started back at the Bronco 8. 3rd and 6, Elway shotgun. Almost offside, but the Packers got back on. Elway scrambling, looking.
There he goes.
5-yard line.
He's getting quarterbacks doing that, don't you?
How important is this football game? How bad does John Elway want to win this football game? Do you see that quarterbacks go down? Not Elway.
Fair play. Yeah, good. Yeah, it's incredible how sports moving on, isn't it? You know, I've never realised in the NFL, notice all the pads, how big they used to be, and how sweet they are now.
Yeah. I was watching a game the other day of soccer superstars.
Yeah.
And the speed of the game was so slow, but yet they were trying so hard, and it goes to show how elite that top level is.
Oh, absolutely. It's chalk and cheese, isn't it, from 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Even when you watch, like, I've been to lower league games, and you stand pretty close on the lower league games. It's like pretty much on the pitch. And when I watch it, the intensity's there, but the skill and levels are just nowhere near.
Yeah.
You know what you see at the Premier League, and you can see the Premier League time. It's calm, unless you're down at the level, and you can see how fast it is and how fast the feet are and all that.
You see some of the old matches, like, you know, in the 60s, England, like United win the European Cup, and I've watched that, and, you know, comparing it to the Premier League today, it's absolutely, you think, well, our Sunday League team could have had a chance against them.
I know.
We really could have stood a chance.
Yeah, it's a big difference now, isn't it?
It's absolutely incredible.
It's elite level. Yeah, it's proper
really
elite level. But yeah, you didn't really touch on the fitness there, did he? And the style of, like,
it definitely is a big part
change
of
of sportsman.
Yeah, they're so professional these days. Most of them aren't. It's absolutely incredible.
Like
the dedication to it.
But again, the machines and the tools they have to work with to make them that elite.
It's
very different.
The technology is increasing all the time. Is it even just in like gyms and things like that? Like say nutrition, huge part of it now in sports science. It's absolutely incredible.
Good to see. It's not that long ago. The 90s seemed like yesterday for us.
Yeah,
I think the 30 years ago.
I know. I was going to say that 90s. You think yesterday, but 30 years.
I know.
Wow, long time.
Hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll catch you on the next one.
Cheers.